And joining us in the studio for more is our senior diplomatic correspondent, Owen Alterman. But first, let's bring in Abdulla Aljenaid, a columnist and geopolitical analyst based in Bahrain. He joins us from the capital, Manama. And Abdullah, once again, we know that the Saudis have certain conditions for Israel on the Palestinian issue, but clearly they're making it clear to Washington that the road to normalization will also have to go through the U.S. in a way as it did in some way with the UAE, certainly Morocco, and certainly with Sudan.
Well, good evening to you, Calev, and your guests at the studio. Definitely, as an observer, we can see that there is a lot of steps, diplomatic steps in terms of getting the ground prepared for something that will definitely take place eventually. But provide that all parties engaged are evaluating such a step strategically and not for political, let's say, serving political agenda or short-term political agendas. I believe Israel now will have to reevaluate everything with, from the prism of the Abrahamic Accords and not Israel, that it is being threatened by so many factors. Israel now belongs to a geography, it's recognized by everybody, and they need to invest long-term investment in peace.
Right. In peace, certainly we know the Saudis, they have their peace plan here, as Abdullah said, but another message, clearly, they knew this would probably come out publicly, making clear that that by itself may not or won't be enough.
Right. I think there are two different arguments here. There's a kind of a salad, but I have a feeling the Saudis might be tossing it on purpose. One is the message from Abdulla Aljenaid in the meeting with American Jewish leaders, where he basically says, listen, there's going to be normalization. Give us time. There's public opposition. We need to go slow. Trust us. Stay on side with us. Don't come out and criticize us. Trust us that we're moving this forward. It's just a matter of time. That's one argument. The other argument, the argument from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh to the delegation from the Washington Institute, where he basically said, this is all about what the Americans give us. As soon as the United States gives us those three things that we want, we are ready to go forward. I think if you try to put the two arguments together, because they're separate, they're distinct, but I think they do make sense together. What Abdulla Aljenaid is saying, this is going to take time. What MBS is saying, it is set to take time, but the timeline can be shortened if the Americans give us what they want. And in terms of those three demands, Calev, what's being talked about here, at least from the Saudis, being pitched as a kind of three-way deal, right, between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States. And a three-way deal like that needs to be a win-win-win. It clearly would be a win for Israel to get normalization, to say the least. Would clearly be a win for the Saudis if they get these three deliverables from the United States, or these three points from the United States. But would it be a win for Washington? These are three big asks from the Saudis, or at least two of the three are big asks, right? Treating it as a NATO ally or as an equivalent of a NATO ally in weapon sales, this issue of uranium, these are big asks from Washington. I think there are a lot of people in Washington who will be scratching their heads saying, what do we get out of this? And there is enough in it for us on the terms the Saudis are offering. Again, that doesn't mean the negotiations have to end, but this is a starting point. I bet they're not a finishing point. I suspect what the Saudis will have to offer to the U.S. in return is, again, their commitment to the U.S. alliance, the way the U.S. is committing to the Saudis, and the war in Ukraine and oil prices and other issues.
Abdullah, as Owen is saying, these are big asks from Washington, and yes, for the incoming Israeli government, there may be some big asks too to fall forward on the peace process. And the question is, they're going to ask: is it worth it to make this move ahead on formal normalization with Saudi Arabia?
Normalization with Saudi Arabia be a target of the upcoming government headed by Netanyahu? Of course it will be a top priority. But at the same time, Netanyahu is not capable of understanding or managing the relations. We've seen strong arm tactics in every which way that he expressed. What Netanyahu need to understand, and I believe he should have some sort of public pressure from the Israelis themselves. They have to understand It's not just the normalization with Saudi Arabia, it's normalization with the whole Islamic world. And that's going to come at a cost, not a cost that will compromise Israel's security or safety, but it will definitely reinstate a new or reinforce a new understanding that the security and the stability of this region will demand that all parties come and play the same or drive to achieve one single objective.
Right. Well, I understand. And you're talking about the peace process. Abdulla Aljenaid, thanks for joining us. Owen Alterman, thank you for that.